Hello, everyone. You have come to the 5 Minutes Discovery channel.
Statistics show that about 60% to 82% of the population of countries considered the poorest in Africa, typically Somalia, Madagascar, South Sudan, Central African Republic, Malawi, Democratic Republic of Congo, living below the poverty line. Poor people in Africa are also hit hard by the crises taking place globally, as evidenced by inflation on the continent rising to 12.3% in 2022. According to research by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the World, the interaction between climate change, water resources and food security shows that increasing Earth's temperature will accelerate the global hydrological cycle, accelerating water evaporates, disrupting rainfall patterns across Africa and other parts of the world, exacerbating land erosion and desertification. The above factors cause farming or production in this area to never prosper. Having a low starting point combined with the general effects of global crises has pushed many African countries, including tens of millions of people, closer to the brink of extreme poverty. Along with that, the United Nations Children's Fund, UN Children's Fund, recently warned that more than 7 million children in the Horn of Africa continue to suffer from malnutrition and need urgent nutritional support, including 1.9 million children facing the risk of death from severe malnutrition. Hunger and malnutrition have forced millions of children and families in Africa to leave their homes to new lands in search of food and water over the past 3 years. The number of severely malnourished children having to go to medical facilities for treatment is forecast to continue to remain high in the near future. The situation becomes even more serious when countries in this region have just suffered a record drought. Although the United Nations has called on donors to contribute about $7 billion to provide necessities and serve medical needs for people in countries in the Horn of Africa. At a conference a few days ago, the amount of aid collected only reached $2.4 billion. Notably, Burkina Faso and South Sudan are two African countries among the 3 countries in the world with the highest number of people in a particularly serious state of insecurity, IPC Phase 5 level, requiring urgent intervention to avoid widespread deaths and complete collapse of livelihoods. FAO and WFP both say that more than 7 million people across South Sudan are expected to fall into crisis or experience more severe levels of food insecurity, an increase of 700,000 people over the previous year. In Burkina Faso, in the face of economic, social and political instability, it is predicted that in the 2 months from June to August 2021, about 2.7 million people will be in a state of serious food insecurity. This is a very alarming increase compared to the increase of 700,000 people in 2019. Hunger in Africa covers all sectors from women, men, the elderly, adults and especially children, when up to 90% of children in Africa do not meet the criteria for standards minimum meal. Even every 3 seconds an African child dies of hunger. The 2021 Global Food Crisis Report also said that about 8.5 million children under 5 years old in the SADC region, including 16 southern African countries, are in a state of malnutrition and stunting. Of these, up to 90% of malnourished and stunted children are concentrated in 6 countries: Angola, Democratic Republic of Congo, Mozambique, Madagascar, United Republic of Tanzania and Zambia. The Democratic Republic of Congo alone has 3.3 million malnourished and stunted children. By 2021, about 2.3 million of these children may fall into a serious and life-threatening condition. Famine in Africa is the result of a series of different problems, and one of the main problems is hunger coupled with poverty, when up to 57% of people in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia live below the poverty line. Poverty, lack of economic resources. They cannot have a healthy menu because the cost of this menu is much higher than $1.90 per day, according to the world's poverty line. Meanwhile, rising inflation on the Black Continent causes the price of a loaf of bread to reach nearly $1 per loaf. The main food source used to help them feel full is grain. But they do not always have enough grain to eat, let alone a diverse diet. For years, international financial institutions including the World Bank and International Monetary Fund have spent billions of dollars to support poor African nations. Recently, the World Food Organization, FAO, established a task force to combat the negative consequences of the COVID-19 epidemic on Africa's food security and nutrition. This force includes the cooperation of many major organizations and alliances of the world, such as the European Union, EU, African Development Bank, ADB, World Bank, WB, International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, World Food Programme, WEP, and African Union Development Agency, AUDA-NEPAD. The force will provide support to any new food security hotspots caused by the outbreak, with a particular focus on countries facing multidimensional threats, with studies on the compensation of the world's food surpluses. FAO says that the shift towards healthy diets on a global scale will prevent the world from falling back into poverty while saving huge costs. In early March 2021, FAO and WEP called for $5.5 billion to scale up actions and prevent hunger through a combination of food aid, cash interventions and food assistance to countries suffering from severe hunger, especially in Africa. At the virtual, high-level dialogue on African food, held in early May 2021, organized by ADB, IFAD, the African Agricultural Research Forum, FARA, and the International Agricultural Research Consultative Group, CGIAR, development partners and banks committed $17 billion in funding to address growing hunger and food security in Africa in a sustainable manner. As part of the bailout, ADB pledged $10.4 billion over 5 years to strengthen agricultural value chains and food production in Africa, of which $1.6 billion was allocated to support 10 strategic agricultural products. $8.83 billion was allocated for building sustainable sectors for similar products. IFAD also pledged to provide $1.5 billion to support national efforts to transform Africa's food and agricultural systems over the next 3 years. The Arab Economic Development Bank has committed to investing $1.5 billion in agriculture between 2020 and 2024. The Islamic Development Bank Group also promised $3.5 billion in funding over the next 3 years. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has pledged $652 million as part of a coalition of development partners. Ladies and gentlemen, this detail has also closed today's video of 5 minutes of discovery. Remember to subscribe and ring the latest notification bell about the next videos. Hello and see you in the next videos and stories.